Hey friends, Miss Camp here again. This lesson is going to be for first graders, and if you are not a first grader, you are welcome to dive right in, pun intended, as we will be making a fish today. We are going to use a shoe. I know it seems a little silly, but this shape will help us get started on our project. You will want a pencil, and you're going to want to trace around holding the shoe down. Make sure you stamp it out first so that you don't, or stomp it out first so that you don't get crumbs all over your paper. That could make for a mess. Then you can take your shoe off. If yours went over your line a little bit like mine, just simply erase that part that you no longer want to see. After that, you'll be done using your pencil, so you can set that aside. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to choose one color. I'm using oil pastels for this. You can easily use crayons because today we are going to be working with resist. And oil and water do not mix. So that clues you in that we will also be using watercolors. First, you're going to want to choose your color. I think for mine, I'm going to choose silver today. And I'm simply going to trace around the line that I created with the pencil. Once you have completed that line, you need to decide which end do you want to be the head of your fish and which end do you want to be the tail. I'm actually going to make this end my tail, so I will make a little separator right there for the tail of my fish. And if you want your tail to grow to be a little bit wider, you could easily add a piece on to the edge if you so choose, and then you could create more lines to go around that. Fish have all different kinds of designs on their bodies. Let your creative juices flow. The next thing you'll want to do is add an eye. If you want to stick with the same color, that's great. If you want to add a new color, that would be fine too. And I'm going to put a little circle inside that as well. Then we have been looking at fish and observing them in first grade. So you might also remember that a fish has some gills. So you can create a gill on the side of your fish. That is how they breathe underwater. They also have that lateral line, and they have fins on top and on the bottom. So you can easily add some fins to the top and bottom of your fish as well. You could give it a mohawk. You could give it just a curved line. Fish have all different kinds of fins. And then down below, you want to add a fin. And then on the side, you want to add a fin to your fish. And this is how they move through the water. Then thinking and looking at your fish, what kinds of designs have you noticed in fish fins? I know that fins have bones in them, so sometimes they have those line markings, and you can add those inside your fins. And then thinking about the body, you might think that you want to create a rainbow fish. You might want to attempt to add scales. You might want to put polka dot designs. Some fish have a eye-looking shape at the back, and that's to deter their prey from getting them. You could also add your mouth on your fish, and you could make it a smile, or you could make it just a line that kind of comes up and down. And then think about what kinds of designs. So I could do maybe some stripe designs on my fish. I could maybe add some lateral lines or horizontal lines on my fish, and you could make yours colorful like it's from the Mediterranean or the ocean. Or you could make some lines that look more like scales. I know from our observation, we created some scales. You could also add a separation so that your head looks like it's separated from the rest of the body. And these are just kind of sideways rainbows, and then I alter them on the next line. So you could have those come and join some other designs, and you could do this throughout the whole body if that was what you preferred to do. You could also create polka dots on your fish if that's something you desire. fill in your space in the way you want your fish to look. And I think I'll just add some more lines for the back of my fish here. So I've got different designs and patterns. Then when you look at your space, you might think that you want to add a background. So think about whether you want a sea anemone, depending on the fish that you're making. Maybe you decide that yours is going to look more like a clownfish, and I know that's where they live. Maybe you decide that you want some seaweed, and you can make it look like it's in perspective. So some is going behind, some is in front of. You could add some lines that are lighter inside. You could fill some in that are darker. You could add other living creatures that are also around your fish, like smaller fish. And you could put some bubbles in your picture. And this might be hard for you to see, but it will show up later. After you've completed your background for your fish, you can begin adding, this is just some sand down here. You can begin adding, after you finish your ground level, you can begin adding your watercolor. And you can choose if you want to color your whole fish in, or if you want to do kind of what I did and make it so that you're going to have separated areas and you're going to choose different colors for painting. Then the last step would be to add the paint. And if you left it open like mine, you're going to need to be a little bit more careful with how you color in your fish. So if you want to start, you could just simply choose one color, and you could have your fish be one color. That's what I'm going to do because I want you to have a chance to get started on yours. So I'm just going to try to stay in my lines as best as possible. And I'm going to create a black fish that has a lot of vibrant colors. And you can notice as I paint over the oil pastel, it is pushing the water away. If you have remembered your mom or dad making, or an older sibling making brownies before, and you've mixed the water in with the oil you added to the brownie mix, at first it doesn't like to mix. And then it's the ingredients of the brownie cake that helps bind it together. Well, this is water and oil. So you can see as I'm painting, the black paint is actually moving away from the oil. Once you've completed painting your fish, you can paint your background. And if you want to be able to paint the whole thing with a one color tone of water, you might consider filling in all of your background spaces by coloring them completely. So again, once I finish this, then I can move on to my paint. And you'll notice when I begin to paint that along the edge of my fish, if I'm not careful, it goes inside. But if I stay right along that edge, the water resists that area. And you might have to swirl your brush along your paint, around your paints just a little bit till the bristles take on the color of the paint you're hoping that will show up. And when you have completed your paint, then you can leave your artwork out to dry. Again, if you do not want the paint to go in an area, then I would recommend coloring that whole space in. And lastly, I'm just going to fill in the seaweed with a little bit of blue, or green, I mean. And that gives it a little bit more texture and makes it feel like it's more realistic. And then when you're satisfied with your painting, you can just set it off to the side. Of course, if you forgot to put your name on your paper like I did, wait until it dries and then complete your signature. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, friends. I can't wait to see pictures of your work. Feel free to post them on the Google website or have your parents send me an email with your finished product. Thanks for joining.